the care for these people is coming out of their pocket, and they're just a financial burden, not only to them, but to society as a whole, be that a visible or invisible disability.
And on top of that, how many times have you seen jokes on like YouTube or something like that where like they let a blind person get away with murder because, well, we can't say that to a blind person. We can't do that, right? Like we have to let them, behave badly because they're special and they need to be treated specially, right?
So what this kind of behavior is a form of is infantilization, which is when you treat somebody as a child or in a way that denies their maturity in age or experience. Feeling the need to handle somebody with kid gloves because they have a disability is denying them their experience for however long they've had the disability, as well as treating them as if they are younger than they actually are.
And people with physical disabilities, unless they ask you for help, do not need to be treated specially and do not need extra help. They will tell you when they need help.
I like the part where you said maturity, and I'm sitting over here giggling. Like,
I was about to say, do you have something to add to the class there, Spaz?
Fire.
She just said I was mature. Jokes on her.
I mean, I'm just going to say, out of all three of us here, one person has not made a video about 69K followers yet. Fucking children.
It's because you're not there yet.
Shut up. I don't need that. Don't take your logic out of that, but...
You know fucking well when you get there, it'll happen. Katiosaurus did it, for fuck's sake.
Anyways, now we've talked about, treating and validating physical disabilities as people who need to be coddled and treated specially and everything like that. And the problem with invisible disabilities is more often than not, we get the other treatment. We get the, oh, you're not really disabled, or you're just faking it for attention, or do you really need that kind of help? Right?
Stop using your disability as an excuse.
So they don't treat us with kid gloves anymore. They just invalidate the ever-loving fuck out of us and don't even give us the benefit of the doubt of having a disability.
Now, I want to point out that we are talking in generalizations tonight in these sections, the previous section, this one, because when we talk about invisible disabilities, we mean all disabilities that are invisible. Even within those invisible disabilities, however, you are somebody who has diabetes, for instance, and is having issues with low blood sugar, might need to sit down, might need to have something to eat, will still be met in a different light than somebody who has PTSD and is being triggered at the moment. There are still differences within those invisible disabilities and the way that we are handled. So not all disabilities are the, oh, you're not really disabled. It's because things like diabetes, like that's becomes pretty obvious when somebody has low blood sugar. It is also a lot more common.
My dad's diabetic. He just needs to sit down for a couple of minutes and he'll be fine, right? Where a lot of people around them would be like, oh, well, can I go get him a juice or what, and they'll be accommodating in that regard. Whereas if somebody is being triggered, having a PTSD episode, and they're far less likely to be met with the same amount of compassion, care, attention, any of that.
I agree. There are some that are more accepted than others, but there are still people who will invalidate no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like I know people who have invalidated people with diabetes and things like that as well, because, my mother has diabetes, right? And her company, one of the first companies she worked for, told her that she wasn't allowed to have snacks in her desk because they weren't allowed to eat on the floor. And she had to go all the way into the back of the building in the bathroom back there to test her blood sugars and things like that. And they were treating her disrespectfully just because she had diabetes. So while it's more generally accepted, there are still people who invalidate the ever-loving fuck out of every invisible disability.
I think that I did a shit job explaining what I meant to explain, though. That was that people with visible disabilities, you are disabled. You fall in one spectrum, and that is you are a disabled individual, and you will be treated as such. When it comes down to invisible disabilities, we fall on some form of a spectrum, depending on what the disability is, to being closer to having a visible disability to those that are definitely. So with diabetes, you have equipment to test your blood sugar and stuff like that. So those are things that are regularly, like, if you see it, you know what it is. Whereas somebody who has PTSD doesn't really have anything that is well known to help if they're going through.
Well, PTSD, even now, PTSD is becoming more knowledgeable, and people are having more knowledge of this. I want to point out, Lee, and your EDS, right? As your EDS as an invisible disability, I didn't know shit about EDS until I met you and started talking to you about it. It's right. So the knowledge level out there is so low on EDS overall, and this disability that you have, that, you know, like I said, you may need a handicap parking spot up front to be able to walk into the grocery store without hurting yourself because of your EDS. And I guarantee you that fucking 99% of the society would not know or understand why you need that.
Yeah, like I've had it mentioned in comments before over the course of the last year. And I just kind of looked at it and like, I have no idea what that is. All right, okay, cool. Like, you know, like, I don't know, right? I didn't know.
So there's,
you know now, bitch.
So there's multiple factors. Let's be real. There's multiple factors, but I consider, like, the way invisible disabilities get invalidated are twofold mostly. One, how visible or affecting you, right? Like, can people see that it has an actual effect on you? Then there's a little bit more likelihood to accept that. Like, if you're having a breakdown, people will invalidate it, but they will, you know, they can see you're having an issue. The second thing is education and understanding what it is that is a problem as well.
Well, and that's one of the biggest issues and hurdles that a lot of us have to face and deal with, and especially as hitting our wheelhouse with ADHD, the amount of stigmatization of it, the amount of bullshit information that's out there, the amount of invalidation that is already out there.
Red dye 40.
But you look so normal, and it's a kid's thing only, right?
It's a little boy's disease.
That's right. Didn't you all grow that?
Why don't you just get up and focus?
Have you tried a planner?
And another problem with a lot of, like, especially with, like, ADHD hitting its wheelhouse now, right, is it's been around for a while, and we all have a whole lot of internal ableism installed in us through our life to make us doubt, do we really have an issue? So that's what we're fighting as well. So not only do we fighting invalidation from other people, but we tend to invalidate ourselves as well. Am I really having a big problem? Is this really a problem? Am I just overblowing it?
We're not going to start this call of bullshit already, are we?
Oh, yes, we are.
Okay, apparently we are. All right. Yeah, no, I don't think that multiple times in a day. So,
right?
Never, not once in my entire life.
So, and that's a problem with a lot of.
What is imposter syndrome?
Never heard of it. That's a problem with a lot of invisible disabilities as well. As we doubt ourselves a lot of the times, so we go the extra mile not to draw any attention to our disabilities because we don't believe we have it, or we doubt ourselves of how severe they are.
Well, this has been an episode of Another Day in My Fucking Life. Thanks, Patrick.
So I'm going to shift gears just a hair, keeping in that same kind of vein, but still slightly different. When somebody has a disability that requires a wheelchair, we're talking mainly mobility aids, so wheelchair, walker, cane, we see that there's legislation for accessibility in things like buildings and stuff like that. And if there isn't, there is typically an outcry that says this is wrong, this needs to be fixed because this is not accessible to people who are in wheelchairs. I know a big issue for a lot of people with wheelchairs is door width. The inability to fit their wheelchair through a door. what we need to do is start making that shift within the way society views invisible disabilities to make them more accessible. And what I mean by this is a person who has a mobility issue will have particular accommodations that might be afforded to them through things like work, such as, if I was working at a game store that will not be named, that I used to work at, if I was in a wheelchair, I would probably not be putting things on top shelves because I can't fucking reach the top shelf.
Try a little harder and stand up.
Right? I heard meditation cures paralysis.
Hey, I heard ice baths fix ADHD.
Oh my God, don't even get me fucking started on that one, man. The research hunt is fucking on. There's another one. See, I got the backtrack for this one. There's another one I'm fucking working on right now. This guy fucking tagged me in, and it's this asshole who's like, well, all you have to do is just concentrate on your breathing and breathe in and then blow out the cold air onto your hand. And then that way, by doing that, you can reverse the damage that's been done to you by Adderall and Vyvanse. I'm like, what kind of fucking glue are you sniffing?
Kind made out of horse hooves, obviously.
Wow. I don't want to get off on a rant here.
That's awesome.
Sorry.
So when we talk about accessibility for people with invisible disabilities, and I'm going to talk about mental disabilities here because this is a big one that we need to as a society, make that shift towards accepting that society is not accessible to people with mental health issues, is addressing the way that we do things such as time off of work. If somebody needs time because they are having issues with their depression and can't get out of bed, that should not be held against them. And in many places, it still is held against them. And they are forced to take an unpaid leave day if they don't have sick days that they can pull from.
I do have to commend the places that have mental health days installed into their system. My last job, I think we were allotted 3 per quarter, I believe. I'd have to go back and check the paperwork. Don't quote me on that. But I think we got 3 per quarter, right? So if you were having a day where you could not get out of bed, right? The executive dysfunction was not allowing you to fucking even pull the blanket off you. Well, you can call in sick for the day. So I commend places that
for sure
those put in.
If we think about it in terms of schools, somebody who may not have the ability to hold a pen to take notes will be given a note taker, somebody who can take notes for them. What's lesser known is that certain mental disorders are covered under things like the Americans with Disability Act that give them that same right, but not all disabilities are covered under the ADA. So there's still a skewed balance to who can have the access needed in order to create level playing field and those that cannot.
So here we go. I was told that I needed to dial up my asshole.
Well, don't go misquoting me. I didn't say you had to dial up your asshole. I was just saying that you said you were bringing the asshole tonight.
Okay.
I've been waiting for him to make appearance.
I will bring the asshole with this. I am going to go ahead and simplify Lee's last discussion into a 1-sentence thing. You would never fucking see society call out somebody for using a fucking wheelchair. Why the fuck do we call out people for using accommodations because they have mental health issues? Fuck you. Shut your fucking mouth, get in your fucking lane, and if you don't suffer from this shit, shut the fuck up.
See, that I could put on a Hallmark card.
You're in the fucking Hallmark card.
So, now I have brought the asshole on that statement, and we are, again, this is what we fucking suffer from with invisible disabilities. A lot of the times, especially with people who don't fucking know what the fuck we go through, our accommodations are not a leg up. We don't get things that give us a fucking benefit. We get things that barely let us function in society. Barely. So, shut the fuck up. Tired of it. Dumb hearing these fucking things. Anyways, okay. Now I'm going to be my happy chipper self again.
It comes down to equity, folks. Comes down to equity.
Care to expand on that for our listeners?
Those of us that suffer with invisible disabilities, all we really want is to be able to function at the same level as somebody who is neurotypical in this society.
Or someone who's normal in society, not just neurotypical.
Yeah,
but
not
normal.
just neurotypical. Sorry, we're an ADHD podcast, and we're normally talking about neurotypicals.
Mhm.
Hell, I made that mistake